Good morning. Today we are going to begin Unit 4. Okay, Unit 4 covers Chapter 2, Lesson 3, and Chapter 3, Lessons 1, 2, and 5. Okay, so on your notes packet, go ahead and put your name and the block. Okay, and our Unit 4 assessment date is going to be Tuesday, March 7th. Okay, when you're ready, go ahead and turn the page. All right, and we are going to begin with Chapter 2, Lesson 3. Now, today's lesson is a little bit different than what you would ever think of in a math class. We're not going to deal a whole lot with numbers, but we're going to learn about this idea of conditional statements. Okay, as we get into chapters 3, 4, and 5, we're going to be doing several geometric proofs. And within the geometric proofs, we're going to have definitions and theorems and postulates that are written as conditional statements or the converse of a conditional statement. So we're going to take some time today and familiarize ourselves with conditional statements, the converse of a conditional, the biconditional, and then the truth value behind those statements. Now, a conditional statement is an if-then statement. For example, if it is cloudy, then it is raining. Okay, that's an example of a conditional statement. It begins with if and has the word then in it as well. Okay, a conditional statement can be math related or non-math related. Now, the symbols we use for conditional statement are P, arrow, Q, and I read this as if P, then Q. The hypothesis is the phrase immediately following if in a conditional statement, and the hypothesis is denoted with the symbol P. The conclusion is the phrase immediately following then in a conditional statement, and the letter Q will always represent the conclusion. Now, for the hypothesis and the conclusion both, it's the phrase that follows if and follows then. So the word if and the word then is not included when identifying the hypothesis or the conclusion. Okay. So let's look at example 1. Example 1 says identify the hypothesis and conclusion of each conditional statement. So the statement reads, if it is Saturday, then there is no school. Now, the hypothesis is the phrase immediately following if. Okay, so when I see if it is Saturday, okay, the phrase that follows if is it is Saturday. So I have underlined that with one line and put the P above it to represent the hypothesis. You could also write out the hypothesis, it is Saturday. Now, the conclusion is the phrase immediately following then. So I have then there is no school. So the phrase after then is there is no school. I put 2 lines under that to represent the conclusion. Okay, and I denoted that with the letter Q. Okay, we could also write it out, there is no school. Now, I would like for you to pause the video and try letters B and C, or the next 2 problems. When you are ready, hit play, and I will go through the next 2 examples. Okay. So the next example, if x minus 8 equals 32, then x equals 40. Okay, the hypothesis is the phrase immediately following if. So x minus 8 equals 32 is the hypothesis. I denote that with the letter P. The conclusion is the phrase immediately following then. So I have x equals 40. I'm going to put 2 lines under that for the conclusion, denoted by the letter Q. You could also write it out by hand. Hypothesis is x minus 8 equals 32. Conclusion is x equals 40. Okay. And the second problem, if a polynomial has 4 right angles, then the polygon is a rectangle. The phrase immediately following if is the hypothesis. A polygon has 4 right angles. Hypothesis is denoted by the letter P. The phrase immediately following then is the conclusion. So the polynomial is a rectangle. I'll draw 2 lines. That is my conclusion, Q. Now, in example 2, we're going to write each statement in if-then form. And again, these statements can be non-math related or math related. So I'll always do one that's not math related, and then the remaining will be math related. And we'll deal with, a lot of times, our definitions. So any good definition we can write as a conditional statement. Okay? All right, so our first problem, all apes love bananas. Now, when we take a statement and we write it as a conditional, we may need to move the words around and add some additional words to get an if-then statement that makes sense. So one example of this, if the animal is an ape, then he loves bananas. Okay, so again, I had to add a few words, I had to separate a few words. That's okay. Okay, example 2. The sum of the measures of complementary angles is 90 degrees. So I want to take this statement and I want to write it in if-then form. There's several different ways that you could do this. Okay? One way, we could say, if 2 angles are complementary, then the sum of their measures is 90 degrees. So notice I changed the order around a little bit. Even though complementary is towards the end of the statement, I wrote it as part of the hypothesis. A second way you could have written this, if the sum of the measures of 2 angles is 90 degrees, then they are complementary. Okay? So there's a couple of different ways in which we could write each statement in which it would be correct. Okay, I would like for you to pause the video, and I would like for you to try the last one. We have collinear points lie on the same line. Can you write this definition in if-then form as a conditional statement? So pause the video, try it, and then when you're ready, hit play, and I'll go through the problem with you. Okay. So we have collinear points lie on the same line. One way that we could write this is a conditional statement. If points lie on the same line, then they are collinear. Okay, we need to make sure if comes first. Okay, it is followed by then. And we have to make sure that we talk about the word collinear and points lying on the same line. Okay. Another way we could write this, if points are collinear, then they lie on the same line. Okay, so this is a second option. If points are collinear, then they lie on the same line. Okay. Even though I've changed the order of the words, if still comes first, and it's followed by then. Okay, we're going to stop this video. Okay, take a moment and kind of go back through, highlight anything you find important. I'm going to have you go back to Canvas and click on video 2 for the second set of examples.